Right. So morning all. I was going to start this off by just talking about once when I went to the Paris Air Show, years and years and years ago. And I remember, I don't normally cover airplanes, but my colleagues in the Paris office told me that the only thing that mattered was to find out how many planes Airbus and Boeing were selling. It was the only thing that mattered. So during the couple of days, we would try to get news from, was British Airways buying Airbus or Boeing or whatever? And you just got a sense of the huge competition that exists in this field. And also how competitive it is to get top jobs there. So our illustrious guest, who has newly got the job, you got it in July, was it? Or yeah?
May.
Okay. And so she's going to tell us a little bit about what the future holds. It's no longer just planes. So my first question to you is, the aerospace industry is moving ahead with autonomous flight technology. What is Airbus doing in this area now?
Yes, thank you, Axel. Well, first of all, indeed, healthy competition is what keeps our industry alive and fuels also definitely innovation. When it comes to autonomy in particular, well, autonomy per se is not a mission for us at Airbus. Our mission, in a broader perspective, is to protect and connect people worldwide. And wherever autonomy does enable fulfilling that mission, also projected into the future, of course we embrace autonomy. And we've been embracing it since quite a long time. So if you look at the incredibly rich and varied product portfolio of Airbus, you will see that autonomy is already today a fundamental component into what we do. Think about rockets, Ariane rockets, for instance. Think about satellites, right? So telecom satellites, Earth observation, navigation, science satellites. Think about Mars rovers. We're developing, rovers to go and explore Mars. Think about Zephyr. Zephyr is our high-altitude pseudo-satellite, a magnificent soaring aircraft powered by solar cells during the day, by batteries during the night. And we recently broke the world record of autonomy. We were flying for more than 30 days without any sort of propulsion, if not the sun power. So autonomy is already a reality today, also applied, of course, to civil aviation, both for helicopters, where we have autonomous pilot assisting functions during takeoff and landing to assist, for instance, in the cases of whiteout, where you're in a snowy environment, or brownout for sandy desert environments, and of course, for Airbus commercial aviation. Airbus commercial aviation, where it's not just a matter of very advanced autopilot systems, but also the breakthrough we brought into the industry, elaborating further on the pioneering spirit, which enabled us 50 years ago to disrupt the market and become a key player 50-50 with Boeing. We're talking about fly-by-wire. So the flight envelope protection systems, which are now standard in the aviation industry, are also a form of autonomy. What's new then, right?
Yeah.
What is the future reserving when it comes to autonomy? Well, let's put it this way. We observe different trends. First of all, we acknowledge that if once upon a time technologies were developed and exploited in a military environment first and then being re-injected into the civil world, Now there's a reverse of trend. So commercialization of high technologies, high-edge technologies, really bringing an additional layer of competition for Airbus in the game. We observe that often technologies are not developed in our own industry to begin with. If I spell out to you the magic formula for urban mobility, CASE, C-A-S-E, so connected, autonomous, shared, and electrical, you would all immediately think of a car, not of an aircraft, right? But that's exactly also our own ambition and intention, meaning, what does that mean? That we need to be open also to explore and adopt and learn from other industries.
So could I just quickly ask you then, because one of the key areas you're looking at is autonomous drone delivery. You have a project in Singapore, and can you tell us about that, and how do you want to apply that in the future?
Definitely. So you're referring, I guess, to Skyways in Singapore?
Yeah.
So Skyways is definitely part of our broader urban air mobility plan. With Skyways in Singapore, our intention is to develop an airborne logistic system to enable last mile delivery of parcels via drones. We know that for e-commerce, the challenge of that last mile stretch is a particularly complex one to treat. And we believe there is indeed a sweet spot between what you can reach by bike and what you should be transporting also in terms of weight by means of trucks. So with Skyways, practically in Singapore, we're collaborating with the National University of Singapore, with the SingPost Postal Service, and with the National Civil Aviation Authority to test. And we will start testing in February on campus of the university. And we're talking about 150, more or less, football fields. Parcel delivery via drones along some dedicated air corridors, delivery which will then happen to 3 predetermined spots on campus. And we're doing this hand in hand with the civil aviation authorities in order also, this is a common challenge to autonomous flying systems, to demonstrate that it is indeed possible to operate such systems, not only because it makes sense economically, but also because it's safe. So it can be operated safely on in urban environments. The next step of this trial phase, which we envisage will last 3 months more or less, will be to stretch the scenario to a maritime environment, where we intend then delivering parcels with drones to ships anchored off the shore of Singapore, one of the biggest and busiest ports worldwide. Again, so this is for us a fundamental ingredient of urban air mobility, also with an important sustainability character, right? Because we will be relieving transport on wheels by means of fully electrically propelled drones. So it's definitely an ingredient of urban air mobility as a whole, which is not just a trend. Now everybody's doing flying taxis, right? Any other day you read of new projects being launched. Well, if there's figures behind this trend, okay? So if you look in 1990, there were like 10 megacities worldwide, cities with more than 10 million inhabitants, right? And if we prospect that to 2025, we will have 40 megacities, more or less. And so when it comes to traffic congestion, the trend is nowhere near decreasing. And there's even some quantifications of what that means economically, what type of waste that entails. And the figure is mind-blowing. We're talking about a projection in 2030, 2040 of about $300 billion per year in United States and Europe alone because of urban congestion. So how do you solve that? How do you tackle that? Of course, unleashing the third dimension as a way to really come back to a sustainable solution.
Yeah.
And we're doing so under platform perspective. So we are already flying with Vahana, a single PAX vertical takeoff and landing, fully electrical vehicle, already completing its alpha development phase. We're going to be flying soon with City Airbus, 4 PAX maximum, also VTOL, also fully electric. We are, of course, tackling the regulatory aspect, today absent, so we need to shape air traffic management, unmanned traffic management, and then services.
Yeah. Can I just quickly ask on, and I think this is perhaps important, when is this going to happen? When are we going to, how soon is an electric vertical vehicle ready? When will you have it ready for us?
Well, we are flying already today with demonstrators to allow us to gain confidence on the robustness of technical and technology-driven solution, be it the sense and avoid systems, be it the tilting mechanism for the wing, which is flying currently on Vahana. And a fundamental component of that, which we are also gradually maturing, is electrical propulsion. Right? So we're not new to electrical propulsion per se. In 2010, we were flying a Cree, the 4-engine aerobatic, fully electrical aircraft. In 2010, we launched EFAN. It was the first fully electrical aircraft to cross the channel. We learned a lot out of that experience through several hundreds of flights, and we're injecting all that now into EFAN-X. EFAN-X will be multiplying by 30 the electrical power we tested on EFAN. So it's a totally new game where we will be taking to the air a 2-megawatt electrical power unit coupled with a gas turbine with an integrated generator. And we will be learning how to manage very high levels of voltage associated to this construction. And this is going to be flying by 2020.
Okay.
So we clearly see a trend of already being able in the 2020s to fly with 3 to 4 PAX, fully electrical solutions, taking that to the 2030s for typical regional size type of transport. And when we go beyond that, unless there will be fundamental technical revolutions, and the limiting factor is the batteries, the energy density of the batteries, which compared to kerosene is very low. We're talking about 300 watt-hour per kilograms with the ambition to get to 500, which is already a technology jump, whereas kerosene, we're talking about 12,000 watt-hour per kilograms, right? Okay. So if we go to the higher category of aircraft, for us, what is certain is our commitment to fulfilling our sustainable aviation goals, which imply by 2020 capping the carbon growth and by 2050 reducing by half CO2 emissions. It's not a problem exclusive to Airbus. It's like transport industry as a whole is responsible for 25% of the worldwide CO2 emissions, 25%. And we intend playing our game and tackling the 2% aviation is responsible for, and to do that, we have no single technology. Electrification alone will not take us there. It will be more as it often is with innovation, a concurrent, a superimposition of different technologies, so hybrid configurations, which will allow us to go there, fulfilling our sustainable development targets, and also opening the door to wholly new, possibly, architectures, right?
Okay. Well, I was going to ask you about one. Can you envisage that there will ever be commercial airliners which will be unmanned?
That's a
and
very,
when?
that's a very interesting question indeed. Autonomy, as I mentioned, our products are largely automatized already, but indeed there are developments, further developments. And when it comes to civil aviation, well, again, let's start from the facts, right? So we know that the fleet, the worldwide airplane fleet, doubles pretty much every 15 years. So by 2037, we could have as many as already 50,000 aircraft flying. Now, today, we have round about 200,000 certified and type-rated pilots flying the 25,000 planes. Tomorrow, we will need to add 500,000 pilots to this level, right? That's the city of Lisbon, enabled to fly commercial aircraft. So it cannot be a sustainable and viable solution. My personal take of these 200,000 certified pilots flying today, 1% are women. So we could certainly work a little bit on diversifying a bit more the population of pilots, but in parallel, we also need to look seriously into making our own products more and more autonomous. And we're doing so in a stepwise approach, because even if our products can do it, even if the technology is there, the regulatory aspects, the certification aspects of flying potentially with one single pilot in the cockpit are not yet mature. Let's not forget it took us decades to go from the Lockheed C-141 member crew configuration in the cockpit to the 3 configuration of the DC-8, and now the standard in aviation industry for an A320, for instance, is 2 pilots, right? So it will take us some time to get to a single pilot. We are testing it in a stepwise approach, starting to see what happens if in cruise we have one single pilot in the cockpit. What if we start by automizing the taxi phase, the takeoff and the landing? And as there is a significant component of artificial intelligence coming in to enable autonomous operation in a way of really assisting the single pilot in command, in better distributing the workload, we need to certify also the artificial intelligence component, which will enable us to be more autonomous. And this is a wholly new field where we are writing history of aviation and shaping it together with partners, with research institutes, with universities, hand in hand with the aviation authorities. And then maybe one day we could even envisage, why not, a fully autonomous aircraft, right?
But would passengers get into these planes, do you think? I mean...
Indeed. Well, there will be an acceptance component we will need to deal with. But what gives us confidence in this sense is history. This is nothing really new. History teaches us that human beings adapt to technologies pretty quickly, technologies they were scared of just a couple of years before. It happens with trains. 1835, it was the first train, the Adler, going from Nuremberg to Fürth in Germany. People were thinking that just by looking at an object traveling at the staggering speed of 25 kilometers per hour would imply brain damage. So they wanted to build fences around trains, right? So today nobody's afraid of watching trains. Think about our great-grandparents. They would have never stepped into a lift without a lift boy.
Sure.
Today, an autonomous lift ride is nothing really sensational. And of course, when it comes to cars, I need to mention the 1865, the Red Flag Act. In Britain, there was this law imposing that a man on foot waving a red flag would precede any incoming car, okay? Not to scare off pedestrians. So And there's a very, very insightful statement on autonomous driving, for instance, from Eric Schmidt, who, talking about Google autonomous cars, was saying the time span between horror and boredom is 20 minutes. So that's the time it takes for a passenger to adapt to the uncomfort of seeing a steering wheel going on its own, and then just starting to be bored and fidgeting with the mobile devices. 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And this applies to aviation as well. Orville Wright, one of the founding fathers of aviation, was stating in 1905 that we will never be able to cross an ocean with an aircraft because you would need an engine flying for 4 consecutive days at the same speed. So only 50 years after, the volume of passengers going across the ocean on aircraft overtook the ones going by ship, right? So even the brightest minds are overtaken by technology developments they couldn't even think of. And again, an autonomous airliner, by the time we will get there, there will most likely be unmanned air taxis flying around, and so maybe the public perception and the demonstration that yes, we can do so safely will certainly help public acceptance.
All right. We're getting near the end of the session, so I wanted to ask, what other emerging technologies will be game changers for the aerospace industry?
Well, I think there's never been such an exciting time to be in aviation industry. And there's different potentially disruptive trends coming up. My very favorite relates to quantum technologies. Mm-hmm. So, we normally tell our people, our researchers, go out there, explore, investigate, develop. The only limits are the ones imposed by the laws of physics. I say, hang on a minute, which physics? Because when it comes to quantum physics and the application of the principle of quantum mechanics to quantum technologies, not only computing, we're entering really into new territory. Quantum computing enables unparalleled processing of data at unparalleled speed. The aviation and aerospace industry is of unparalleled technology, complexity, and it's a perfect match. And we're really already spearheading the industry when it comes to the application of quantum computing to our own products. Optimization of flight paths, optimization of missions for Earth observation satellites. And let me give you an exclusive, a teaser. Please stay tuned, because mid-December there will be a Quantum to Business session in Mountain View, and we're going to be launching an epic quantum challenge on Airbus side. Add to that the potentiality of quantum communication, QKD, post-quantum encryption, the potentiality of quantum sensing, and all of a sudden you have cameras able to see through clouds, radars making stealth a function of the past. So there is no limit to what we can achieve.
Okay.
And it's definitely one of the most exciting trends.
Just one, you have to answer really quickly because we only have 1.5 minutes, but how about 3D printing? It sounds kind of scary to make planes.
3D printing is again, it's something not really new. We've been working on 3D printing since quite some time now. But what changes is the type of materials which we can use to 3D print out of particles or of filaments. So we started typically on polymers, and we have already 3D printed polymer part flying on our fleets on A350, and we start having the first metallic, for instance, on A400M. But we're getting now into titanium, stainless steel, aluminum, and we're seeing that the impact of this technology is shifting from being a purely prototyping type of approach, or let's say an in-service support type of technology you use when you need a spare part. It's getting more and more into the serial production. This is really the groundbreaking impact it will have, allowing us to reduce by 55% our cost, being more sustainable. You put material just there where you need it. You can have multifunctional integrated parts, and you can 3D print the parts you need without stacking up inventories. So this is the real enablement of agile manufacturing for the future.
Great. Thanks very much, Grazia.
Thank you,
Thanks
Axel.
for enlightening.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.